Karl here. Welcome back to my course on guitar chords and how to use them. This is part of the GuitarU.com free guitar school. For my students, I organized the study of chords into what I call the 4 pillars of chord knowledge. The first one being, of course, learning how to play all your open string chords like the back of your hand. Don't stop there. Everyone can play A major, and maybe even A major 7. But how many people can play lots and lots of different chords that qualify as a major, that have that same quality as that chord, such as all the chords you have learned earlier in this course? The first pillar that holds up your knowledge of chords is being very good at playing open chords and knowing how to use them. It's a good idea to review all the open chord stuff in this course. The second pillar of chord knowledge is movable bar chords. We've learned this as root 6, root 5, and root 4 chords. There's lots of great things that happen and lots of great rock and roll songs that are written using that system. And if you learn it, you'll be free. Be free to play what you want to play. E is a root 6 chord because its root note is on string 6. As it moves up the neck, depending on the name of the low string, it receives a different name. A is a root 5 chord because its root note is on string 5, and D is a root 4 chord. The chords E major, A major, and D major are called your parent chords. In this video, I'm going to discuss the third pillar that holds up my knowledge of chords. The third pillar that holds up my knowledge of chords is called 5-position thinking, or the CAGED system, C-A-G-E-D, like a caged animal. This system was developed in the late 1950s and early 1960s by 2 gentlemen. One was named Jack Marshall, who was a famous West Coast guitar teacher and studio player. The second gentleman was the great William G. Levitt, founder of the guitar department at Berklee School of Music in Boston, and widely regarded as one of the greatest authorities on guitar playing and guitar teaching to have ever lived. William G. Levitt was my teacher for 6 years, so I got fairly close to this system. Basically, the CAGED system, or the system of 5-position thinking, works like this. If I start out with an open string chord, let's say C for example, that's in position 1, or the open position. I can play a chord connected to that using a few common tones of that C in position 3, and connect one to that in 5, position 5, position 8, position 10, and in position 12 I've made it all the way up the neck and played an octave of my original chord. That's what we're going to learn here, so let's get started. First, let's get back to basics. And of course, that requires a discussion of the major scale. Here you see the C major scale. Any discussion of chords quickly leads to a discussion of scales. As you probably know, a C major chord is derived from the C major scale. Its spelling is C, E, and G. Its formula is 1, 3, and 5, are the first, third, and fifth notes of the major scale. If you have studied your theory, or have worked with the most logical of all instruments, the keyboard, this diagram will be helpful to you as you study and read these graphics. Here you see a neck of a guitar. On this guitar neck, I have marked every note that is a member of the C major chord. Every single C, E, and G note appearing on the neck of the guitar is right here. Any combination of these 3 notes will give you a major chord sound. Even though it seems daunting and complicated, just looking at this illustration could fill your mind with lots of possibilities. If you call this the C major chord as it appears on the guitar, you would not be wrong. I often call this the master pattern or the super pattern. The smart thing to do here is to make a mental note of every C root note as they appear in this diagram. Naturally, if you are studying this material seriously and sequentially, you'll immediately look to see where the C root notes are on strings 6, 5, and 4. That's because this is the way you have been taught to play, taught to think. Next, let's find the lowest pitched C note on the neck of the guitar. It's right there on fret 3 of string 5. And of course, the chord associated with that root note should be no mystery. It's good old C major, one of your common knowledge chords. Since this chord is in the open position, using open strings, it is also called a C type of chord. Just as the major scale is the king of music theory, the open position, with its open strings, is the king of the guitar neck and of neck mechanics. Now I am back to the original C root note we started with, and instead of working with frets lower than that root note, this time I want to work with frets higher than that root note. When I do that, I arrive here at a root 5 C bar chord, one of your first line of defense chords in the method of root 6 and root 5 thinking you have learned here. Even though this chord is in the key of C, in the CAGED system you are learning here, it is called an A type of chord. Because if a chord with this geometry, with this particular shape, were located in the open position, it would be an A chord. In other words, if the root note of a chord shaped like this were an open string, it would be an A chord. So that's why this is called an A type. In our quest to be able to play the same chord in 5 different positions, we will apply this line of thinking to that root 5 C bar chord. As we move further up the neck, looking for that new chord in a higher position, this chord will be constructed from notes located above the highest pitched notes of the root 5 C bar chord, which would result in this chord, with its root note on string 6. This is really not a first line of defense or go-to chord, but it is a very important shape in our mission to organize and understand the neck of the guitar. Can you see why this chord would be called the G type? If we looked at an actual G chord, you can see the notes in that chord bear the same relationship to one another as the notes in this chord. That's why this is called a G type of chord. As I have said many times in this course, it really is all about the shapes of the chords you're learning. Continuing with this train of thought, let's see what happens when we build a chord using this C root note as the lowest fretted note and construct a chord on these frets just above that root note. You probably guessed it, but the result is your standard C major root 6 bar chord, one of your big money, first line of defense, go-to chords. You can't play rock and roll and popular guitar without it. Also, I'm sure you can recognize that this chord would be called an E type of chord, because if this chord, with its geometry, with this arrangement of notes, were played with the root note as an open string, it would be an E chord. Therefore, this is the E type of chord. As we continue with this thinking, we will take the highest fretted notes in the classic standard root 6 bar chord, and we will build a chord on the frets located here, above that root note. Can you guess what type of chord this is, with its nice little triangle shape? Of course, it's the D type. Even though it's in the key of C, this is a D type of chord. And finally, applying this method of thinking one more time, if we go to that familiar triangle shape and build a chord based on the notes located on the frets higher than that shape, we will come up with this chord. That's right, it's the C type of chord, which should be fairly obvious to you at this point. If you've noticed on the top of the screen, we have spelled the word C-A-G-E-D, or CAGED. That's why this system of neck organization is called the CAGED system. It's based on the 5 open string chords, C, A, G, E, and D, and what happens to these 5 basic chord shapes when they are all transposed to the same key. In this case, we have taken a C type, an A type, a G type, an E type, and a D type, and we have transposed them all to the key of C. This is the CAGED system of neck organization in use by most professional guitarists.